I first heard about refugees and got engaged in the global refugee crisis when I spent some time studying abroad in Madrid, Spain, where there's a lot of refugees from Africa and other parts that are actually settling there. And what really struck me about my time there was that a lot of these refugees don't have communities and friends and families that can really help them in their journey. And I think as we talk about the global refugee crisis, that's really important to remember that many of these refugees who are refugees now never wanted to become refugees when they were first born or even when they were living in their communities. Oftentimes being a refugee has meant that you're forced into a situation that you never anticipated for you or your family. And so the refugee, I think, is just one label that masks a really complicated and a complex story that many of these individuals have. And I think for us, it's really important for us to get to know these individuals and their stories, because oftentimes refugees have amazing stories of resilience and of courage and of overcoming trauma and loss to build lives for themselves and their families. And so I hope as we learn more about the global refugee crisis, and even as we read scripture and learning about God's heart for migrants and refugees, that this theological conversation will also inform our response, that when we actually welcome refugees, we're welcoming Jesus himself. And in their interactions that we have with refugees, that it's not so much about giving of our time and our resources to help them, but their stories can impact us just as much. And I know in my personal relationships with refugees, where I live in Baltimore, that I've been blessed by their stories, I've been blessed by their hospitality and their generosity. And so it's in relationships with refugees that I believe we can be transformed as individuals. And so I hope this journey is one that is a long journey for you in becoming engaged with refugees in your communities and around the world.